This is the final episode of Risking It All for the King. My sword, which had felt so heavy, now became as light as a feather as Chris and I charged into battle, followed closely by Alex and John. We moved towards the two assistant knights, ganging up on them in pairs and slashing in their direction as best as we could, even as we ducked our heads to avoid having our heads removed by the swinging weapons from above. Without armor, we were not very well protected. On the bright side, the lack of heavy armor allowed us to move faster than our attackers. We darted in and out of the fighting as best as we could. Out of the corner of one eye, I could see the bees on the arch, swarming ever faster and faster. The other eye, I could see Walster, the so-called Magnificent, just standing there watching. I could smell smoke from the small fire, too. "Use magic!" I yelled at Walster. "Magic! You're the magician! So show it!" My words seemed to hit Walster hard, and he looked as if he were being yanked out of a dream. He nodded to me and raised up his hands to the sky. His voice echoed above the thrumming of the angry bee guardians. "Sir Marcus McGowan," Walster commanded. It was as if the sky had opened up and an invisible hand reached down to hold the two Dark Knight assistants in place. They immediately froze, standing there like statues, where a minute before they had been in fierce motion. King Arthur, meanwhile, still had his hands full with the Dark Knight, who had knocked the king to his knees. "The dice!" Alex shouted at me. "Roll the dice!" I took the 3 cubes out of my pocket. "What should I roll?" I asked, as if I had the power over the objects. "Who cares? Just roll them and see what happens," John said. I tossed the dice to the ground, a 1, a 2, a 4. The sound of the bees suddenly increased. I picked up the dice and rolled again. 2 6s and a 5. The bees calmed down. I rolled a third time. 2 1s and a 4. The bees got angry all over again. "It's the ones," Walster shouted. "The ones." Of course. 3 soldiers standing. 3 single number 1s on the dice. I tossed the dice again and came up with a pair of 3s and a 2. Walster ran over and touched my forehead, mumbling some words. Then he handed me the dice and said, "Roll." I did, and watched as 3 1s stood standing. Snake eyes 3 times. Now the hum of the bees was so intense I had to cover my ears. I gasped as the insect swarm moved in my direction. If I hadn't been so scared, I would have bolted for the trees. It was as if I had concrete blocks on my feet. I couldn't budge an inch, and yet I knew that one sting of any of those thousands of flying fighters coming my way would likely be a painful death. I knew it, yet I couldn't do a thing about it. The swarm came in, swooping down, and shot off towards King Arthur and the Dark Knight. It paused over King Arthur as if considering him, and then as one cloud it descended upon the Dark Knight. I could make out a scream of fury followed by pain, and the horse, now in a panic, bolted off through the woods at a speed that I wouldn't have thought possible of a 4-legged creature. Off in the distance, I could hear the knight still howling in pain. We looked at the other 2 still frozen. Alex went up to one and poked the knight in the leg with the sword, but nothing happened. "One of the few spells I know that actually work," Walster explained. "The Sir Marcus McGowan stupefies one's opponent for 24 hours. They come out of it all right, although the side effect is a set of black teeth for some reason." King Arthur pulled himself up off the ground. "Good work, young heroes," he said proudly. "Well done. In the darkest hour indeed. Now, shall we see about this arch? We must move fast. The fire is out of control." I looked over. The arch had now changed since the bees had departed. There was a faint pink glow coming from the opening in the middle of the arch. All around us it was getting hotter and hotter. "Is that where we go home?" I asked quickly, pointing to the opening. "Is that the portal?" "Yes, indeed," Walster said. "The magic doorway to faraway lands guarded by the fierce tribe of bees known as the Bazillions. Only the magic cubes have the power to allow visitors to trespass through the portal." The dice were still in my hand. They felt normal, yet I now knew otherwise. I moved them to 3 1s again, and they tingled in my palm. The magic was still there. I shoved the dice into my pocket. "Lads, it's time for us to be off," King Arthur announced. "I must return to Camelot and tell my own knights of this adventure. You've not only rescued me, but you've also rescued Great Britain. The Dark Knight is unlikely to return any time soon." What about them? Chris asks, pointing to the frozen nights. This does not seem like such a bad place to live once the fire dies down. The magic of our sorcerer will no doubt protect them, strangely enough, from the heat of the fire, King Arthur said. Perhaps they will mend their ways and ponder the decisions they make in the future. They have caused great terror near and far. I have no merciful feelings towards them, other than they should perhaps live and not die. Let this be the place where they remain. We nodded in agreement. Farewell, then, until we meet again, if we meet again, King Arthur said, and started walking towards the arch. Walster ran up to catch up with him. Sire, if you would put in a few good words with me with Merlin, I would be most appreciative. It is clear I have much to learn, the magician was saying, as the two of them walked into the arch and then disappeared. Well, I guess this is it, I said, looking at my friends. Let's get back home. Do you think this is all real and just not a dream? Chris asked. Who knows? Do you think it's possible we're all dreaming the same dream? I answered. Like a multiplayer game, like RuneScape, but in our minds. Cool, Chris answered. The fire suddenly raged and the four of us darted towards the arch. It hummed with energy. I moved forward, about to launch myself through. Wait, Alex said. Let's go through together. The four of us squeezed together and walked as one through the arch. You might expect some kind of explosion or lights or something amazing to happen. We're talking about magic here. In fact, we were sorely disappointed. We walked in one side of the arch and walked out the other. We found ourselves just outside a McDonald's, about 2 blocks from my house. I knew it! I knew the arch looked familiar, I said, as soon as I got my bearings. What are you talking about? John asked. The arch! I waved my hands. The McDonald's golden arches. My friend stared at me as if I lost my mind. Maybe I had. Hey, Alex said, as long as we're here, let's get some fries. I'm starving. We all laughed and wondered what our mom would be thinking back at the house when she came into my room and found it empty, except for a complete game of Risk, all set up on the floor. Well, except for the dice. Those are safely tucked inside of my pocket. You never know when I might need them again. You just never know. The end. Thanks for listening to all the episodes and risking it all for the king. Until next time, farewell.